Hello, everyday leaders. Here we are. It is Sunday, April. Oh my goodness, what day is it? It's 19th. I have to always look at my calendar. So exciting. It's Sunday afternoon, and here we are on Personal Growth Live. And so many of the everyday leaders from the Everyday Leaders 50 and 50 podcast have been joining us to share what's been happening in their life through COVID-19. And also, some of these leaders have had big changes in their life since they came on the podcast. And so today I have Teresa Snider with us, and Teresa's in down in Texas. We're Chip Baker, close to Chip Baker, but I wanted to bring her on because she is a woman after my own heart in healthcare and was going through a lot of challenges when she came on the podcast in January. And so I think she just came out of the stream, so we'll wait for her to come back in here. Oh, there she is. And so I wanted to bring her on here and just give her an opportunity to share with us what's been happening, what we're looking forward to, all the things that she has been learning since January, and these changes, how they're really getting through what's next. So just because we're going through
Absolutely.
this COVID-19, we still have big dreams that we got to accomplish in the year. So thanks for coming
I
on.
agree. No, thank you, Melanie. I always love connecting with you. I mean, you're just such a radiant light and a very angelic person that gives people a lot of hope. And I think hope is what mainly everyone is looking for right now, is to grasp on and hang on to that hope. And so that's what leaders do. And that's I think evident in how you connect with people, the message that you put out there all the time is that we're leaders and we get to demonstrate.
We get to have fun. You know,
Yes.
it's about how we lift each other up, and I think it was interesting. I'm teaching a class right now, and we were talking about value. You know, how do you see value in yourself? And I thought it was really interesting because people that are starting personal growth, like right now, they've decided, I
Mhm.
want to do something and I need to change. I need to figure out what I like to do. And my
Mhm.
gosh, I remember when I started the personal growth journey, intentionally, and it was such a challenge and it was such an awakening. Like, I get
Mhm.
to choose. I have freedom to be able to decide how I want to show up in the world again. And so I think it's just really interesting, and we're on this journey, and we just show up naturally, you know?
I know. And thank goodness, right? Like,
Yeah.
yes, you and I have done some personal growth. And for that, I will forever be grateful. And I think it puts us in a unique position right now because there are people seeking and they are looking and they are like, they're longing. And now they purposely get to make some choices.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think it's so exhilarating, right? We're on this always adding value train, always adding value.
Always,
And
always,
so
always.
our adrenaline is just constant. And you love journalism, you love media, we love healthcare. We are just like soul sisters.
I know we are. That's what I love about you. It's like we're just like connected.
I
And that's what's
it,
so great about it.
it is great. And we show up for customers the same way. And um,
Mhm.
I love when we connected back in July of last year, you were kind of doing a marathon on interviews.
Mhm.
And you said, okay, you got to jump on here, 4th of July. And I think I might have been on my sailboat. I don't know.
I know, right? It's
I
like,
know.
wow, we were doing something totally different that this time almost a year ago. And that's what is so interesting is kind of how you kind of look back. And I was joking with someone the other day. I love to do vision
Mm.
boards. And COVID-19, of course, was not on my 2020 vision board, nor was it on anyone else's. Yet it's caused us to have to halt. And, halt for me sometimes is hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And that's the thing. It's like we all kind of needed this, is my opinion, not to get, not for the devastation, of course, yet for us to look around and see what are my priorities, what is my value, and how can I share that, and how can I be of service, and how can I be supportive of these people that are really struggling. And I don't know about you, but I think often since I interviewed this January, have gone back into healthcare. And it was such an interesting thing where it kind of just appeared, where I went back to work for a company that I absolutely love and adore, which is Interim Healthcare, connecting with physicians and nurses. And that's what I almost want to put out there to you and to the leaders and to those that are on this, that may be watching now or later replay.
Mm-hmm.
What are your creative ways of one, finding value, and what are your creative ways to express it? You know, I see people doing drive-by parades in their neighborhood. You know, I see people going to Sonic with their families, or going on walks and taking pictures of different flowers and creating collages. So I don't know about you, but I'm curious, what are some of those as leaders that we can say, hey, here's an idea, here's a thought, here's a connection, here's a way to stay in the world of networking?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Our neighborhood, just in general, they're putting teddy bears in the windows so that when kids come by and they're out on walks, I think it's so cute that they can look at the windows and kind of play like an Easter egg hunt, but a teddy bear hunt. And
I
so
love it.
it's great, and everybody's making masks. I had a group
Mm-hmm.
on here a couple of weeks ago in our community, and it's like, it doesn't take that much. You don't have to be domestic to do this. And so I
Exactly.
said, my gift isn't sewing, but my gift is to try to promote you guys, to try to help get people and
Mm-hmm.
the resources and the products together and communicate, what's going on in messaging and how do we get them delivered to the hospitals and that kind of stuff. And so I think we all have a purpose, right? Just because we can't do one
Yes.
thing, we can still show up and add value. And I think that's what, we just get up and think, how do I do that every day? What is that going to look
Mm-hmm.
like? And so with us being in healthcare, I think
Yes.
it's really great because you have to give of yourself. That other person is waiting for you to show up. A doctor may
Mm-hmm.
be asking about a prescription, or a doctor may be, for me, it was always looking for how to use a certain device that was going to be used in a procedure. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of people that aren't in healthcare don't realize kind of the level that you have to, the knowledge, the training, the resources, you have to be 3,000% into doing your job every day, because the patients, right? And sometimes we're
Mm-hmm.
patients, but our family and friends are patients.
Mm-hmm.
And so that doctor, those nursing teams, they rely on those reps to be able to say, you're the expert trained in this specific process or product. And they
Mm-hmm.
really rely on that person to get them through, changes and research and updates. And so I think that's what we both really thrive in. We love that because you're
Ah, I
connecting.
love it. And you're solving a problem. And as people that really want to make a difference, they want to solve a problem. And so that's what they look to us and turn to us for. And so a couple of things came to my mind is, one thing that Amarillo people did is they all had their family caravan through the hospital parking lot with their hazard lights on, and a certain song from the radio station played to support healthcare workers. Another thing too that I have noticed is telemedicine, and teaching people how can they do what we're doing right here, right now, yet finding out true medical, answers to medical questions. Not that I'm clinical, yet we're the resource. You and I are the connectors. We're the ones that bringing the patient, and I'm back in home health. Home patients still need to be seen. And I noticed there was a statistic recently that said there's a certain percentage of the population, they're not able to go see their doctor on a routine visit like normal. So
Mhm.
these seniors, elderly people are isolated, or these families are becoming isolated. So what do we get to do as leaders? We get to come together and think of some ideas and some ways to solve those problems.
Mhm. And it's so important. So tell me, what's changing? What's your perspective look like now that COVID-19 is happening? And how are you thinking differently?
It is definitely something you have to, whether you want to or not, to survive. And I don't know that, I mean, survival kind of sounds almost, old school in this sense. You don't want to have that mentality, yet that's what we're looking for. And so
Mhm.
for me, the way it looks is, how can we connect online? How can we do these like drive-by parades or whatever? How can we source masks and get PPE equipment? to the hospitals? How can we play a part in that? How can we feed the emergency room doctors?
Mhm.
How can we, partner? Like for me, how can I partner with a local business, a local restaurant that wants to do something and also keep their brand and their ingredient and their staffed? How can we partner with them to feed those emergency room doctors and nurses and hospital staffs and so on and so forth? So definitely, so my perspective is, I'm sure like a lot of people, it's from a new set of lenses.
Mhm. And it's so important, and I think we've said this, but to continue to say it, right? Showing up as we are, to know that we have gifts that are maybe not being utilized, or we've been in jobs where we haven't been able to really identify with the strengths that we have, because, we're showing up and just doing that job. And for many people, they're teaching their kids now, right? There's still the
Yes.
school year, and so they've got 2 or 3 or 4, 5 or 6, or one of my friends has 13 kids at home, right?
Oh, oh, wow. I mean, that's when you go, wow.
So it's about systems, right? You lean
Yes,
on
it
your
is.
systems that because now you have to really decide what's important, and how you're gonna make that home office, and how you're going to take, the time for you to keep your health, right? Exercise. How are you going to get that done now if you're always used to going to a gym? And so many of the everyday leaders that have been on here have been talking about so many strategies. Greg Storch was on from Italy, and talking about how they were restricted beyond 200 meters from their house. They
From their
couldn't leave.
house.
Yes. Yeah. And we never got
Yeah.
there in the United States. But you think about, like, is that coming? Do we panic? Do we plan? And so I guess I wanna ask you, when this started on March the 12th and March 13th, and we were told, "You can't do this," or, "You shouldn't be doing this."
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
People say fear, right? We talk about how we
Yes.
fear, and how that just starts to make us feel like we're suffocating. What was
Hmm.
happening? What were you thinking? What were you planning for immediately on March 13th?
Is for me, and I love that question. And so, like, really what I'm hearing is, how was it for me personally, and how did I determine what the next step was? Well, one, take a deep breath, give yourself a little bit of grace, look and pray for your leaders. I would not want to be, personally, I would not want to be in a leadership role where the governors are making those tough decisions, mayors are making really, really tough decisions. Yet I know for me, out of respect, out of trust, is to lean in
Mhm.
and know that there's a purpose and a reason, whether I agree or not agree. I mean, talk about polarizing information. I know that some people have one opinion because they're struggling financially. Someone else has a different perspective because they are dealing with cancer and they want people to stay home, or they're having a life altering. I have a cousin who has COVID and he's in Houston. He's in ICU or being transferred to ICU. It's been the most detrimental 8 days of his life. And then I know someone that lost a child. I mean, so stories can go on and on and on and on. That's again perspective. But
Mhm.
from a leadership role, we got to lean in and find out, how are we going to participate? And I'm curious, how have you been like participating yet still staying in flow?
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it is trying to protect myself because I have asthma, trying to take
Mhm.
care of the people in my circle, my mom, my stepfather, my husband,
Mhm.
all of those people in our neighborhood that are maybe not able to take care of themselves,
Mhm.
and checking in on them. It's those
Yes.
basic things, helping a company that I'm working with learn virtual training to connect to their customers, because, their customers still have to show up, they're essential workers, and
Yes.
so they are too. But not being able to go out, right, and train them how to do something properly is a real gap. And
Mhm.
so how do you do it? Because they've never been in that environment, and so it's taking them from not being comfortable and stretching them into saying, "It's gonna be okay. We can try this.
Mhm.
It may not be exactly what you see it looking like, to be perfect, but we're gonna try. We're gonna maybe fail a little bit. We're gonna reassess, just like we know how we have to do as leaders, we have to be in this cycle of constant improvement. And
Yes.
so, so I'm working from home, but I think, a lot of this is, we check, did we take a shower today? What
I
day is
know,
it?
right? You're
Is it
like, what?
Sunday?
I
Is it
know. I
is
know.
it Thursday?
I know. Well, and that's how we can have some fun, right? Like give ourselves a little bit of grace. And I saw some, online kind of bingo card games. Like one of them was, the baby boomer, check the box if you've done, and they were funny, right? Or the
Right.
the guilty mom. Did my kids get all of their schoolwork done while I also worked in my home office? I mean, yeah, golly, this is a whole different new normal. And I don't know, sounds crazy, but I know Texas is not going back to school on a
Yep.
university level or public. Is that across the whole United States?
It is, I think, I in Indiana it is, and I know in Michigan it is, and I think in Ohio it's pretty much they're kind of trying to decide, but some of this is the schools that go year round versus the schools that are still on
Mhm.
this 3 months for the summer. So in
Yes.
Indiana, they're pretty much on, get out early May, and then they go back mid-July. So
Okay.
that's the thing for us is I'm thinking about in the Midwest here, those of us that are on this type of schedule, they were talking about, will the kids go back to school? Will they start again in July because of the second wave coming?
Hmm.
So I don't
Hmm.
think they've decided that, but they're definitely here. They're going to be out for the rest of the year. So that's a big thing, the change for seniors, right? All these seniors
Yes.
from
Oh.
college and high school and
Hmm.
even kindergarten, you
I
think
know.
we can't do things or we can't celebrate the symbolic way that we're used to. So we have to be creative. And like you
Hmm.
said, give ourselves grace to say, okay, this is the year. This is 2020. This is what we did this year that was special.
Yes. Well, and that's the thing is we get to create new traditions. Sometimes we just get stuck in a way of doing things because that's just the way it's always been done.
Mhm.
And this is allowing us to say, okay, what can we do that's a little bit different? And, I love to hear when families talk about that there's a company called Liberty Puzzle. And just for FYI, there's supposedly these beautiful puzzles that are like shaped in a certain way. So that's one thing. People are ordering group photo puzzles, jigsaw puzzles. They come in the mail, and then it's a collage of your family. You put that together. Collectively, the different types of games. I saw somebody that had these gigantic literally poster size deck of cards that they could play with one neighbor to another, yet you're pretty far apart, but it's like you have these, so it's causing us to definitely think and be resourceful in ways that we weren't accustomed to being resourceful. And it takes you back in history. Like I love history and historical evidence of how things. There was once a story, and I'd love to know if you know the story, about a mother and her daughter said, "Mom, why do you cook the pot roast in this big old pan?" She's like, "I don't know." And she called grandma, and grandma called another family member. Come to find out, it was only because the pot roast back in the 1910s would cook in this certain pan. You know, it's just sometimes we do things because we think that's what we're supposed to do.
Mhm. Mhm. And when we try it differently, it feels differently, but we start those new traditions. Um, and
Yes.
I was talking to somebody, so I started a Bible study on October the
Gotcha.
1st.
Gotcha.
And we started Proverbs, and we did it for 31 days because John Maxwell, my mentor, challenged me. And I said, "Well, this will be great." And so a bunch of people joined, and then we've continued, and we are still every single morning meeting.
Wow.
And we were talking about this topic this morning on the process of change is the same process of grief, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
now it's for us in the US, it's 5 weeks out from when we were told we have to be quarantined or we have to start
Hmm.
changing our ways. And so I see this momentum, like everybody has said, okay, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to order my puzzles. I'm going to wait patiently. I'm going to get my family that is in the house. We're going to, start this schedule and be on a routine and only go to the grocery store certain days. And we're going to order online and we're going to do the click list. We're going to be really smart about this. But what I've seen in the last week So week 5, right, is
Yes.
that a lot of people, even like us, that are giving and want to show up and add value, it's kind of like, how long is this going to last?
I know.
And there are many people that are starting to get really depressed about it.
Yes.
Even though they have a positive outlook, a positive attitude, they're saying, you know, but I need it to change. Like, I'm okay with change. And I did this and I'm doing this for 5 weeks, but it's like the light at the end of the tunnel to say, when is it going to end?
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
Or what do I need to change next? Because it's like we've been in this just kind of pattern of the unknown. And I think that for us, because we're so used to coming into that change, but for many people that have not experienced something like this, or they've been showing up at the same job every single day, doing the same
Yes.
thing, having the same schedule, this is pretty much kind of a pandemonium. It's really,
Hmm.
really difficult for so many families. And so I'm so sensitive to that because I keep getting reminded like, um, this is like grief. And we feel like we've
Hmm.
lost what we knew. We don't know what's next. We're really nervous about it. And we don't even know if it's going to be safe when we're told you can go back out. Right.
Hmm. I know. And I noticed that, and I don't, again, statistically know, yet I have noticed that some women have posted, which I think is a great idea, is ways for women that are experiencing an abusive relationship or
Yes.
these kinds of, and let's just be real. What about these people that are isolating and depressed? What about these people? What are we doing? I am reminding people, send handwritten letters, call people on the phone, do text messaging. I mean, you have to be conscientious. And for me, it helps me get out of my own way and stop sulking and licking my wounds and experiencing any kind of down mood, is when we can kind of, like you just said, and I think it's beautiful, we are reminded
Hmm.
that this is a unique situation. It is different, and it really is different for everyone on the planet.
Hmm.
No matter who you are, you're experiencing some sort of change or some unique kind of situation. And it is. It's like, how can we put our next best foot forward? How can we have hope? How can we have grace, and come together collectively in a Bible study situation or checking in with our friends, and I love those ideas that you're sharing.
It's just, it's consistency. I think that I was on a panel this last week with Greg Storch and Renee Michelle and Eric Reed and Dennis LaRue and David McGlennon and Paul Silva,
Cool.
big leaders. We were all we were
Hmm.
talking about consistency and what that has done for us. And I look back the past 3 years and how it has changed my life, just doing something specific every day.
Hmm.
And so what came out to us is doing the things that you know you should be doing and getting rid of consistently, getting rid of those things that are toxic, that aren't not
Hmm.
they're not good for you. And I think
Right.
a lot of people in these last 5 weeks have had time to kind of decide, wow, this looks different and I haven't found myself doing this that was dragging me
Hmm.
down. And so I'm really finding a lot of joy. I'm finding more joy in my life. And so I want to encourage people, right? It's okay. You're allowed to have joy. You're
Exactly.
allowed to
And
have joy.
gratitude,
Yes.
joy and gratitude, and just an expectant heart, and a level of faith. I'm telling you, I'll speak for myself. Even my own faith, it's tested, and it's tested like hardcore. And I have not personally read Outwitting the Devil, yet it's on my list, and I
Mhm.
want to read it. And have you read it by chance?
I haven't yet. Nope. It's on my list.
Okay, so there you go. And that's another thing. How can we all challenge each other to do an audible book, walk through the neighborhood, and check in with people collectively, maybe decide on a book or the morning Bible study? And just like you said, how are we getting rid of, or how can we remove some of the toxic or the things that aren't working?
Mhm.
And I don't know about you, but golly, I'm snacking so much that it's like, stop.
I know.
I don't need to go back to the refrigerator. I mean, I've gained weight and my roots are gray. I mean, all of it. It's just, it is what it is. And it's kind of like, okay,
We're
it's going
going
to be
back,
okay.
right?
I know. I know. I'm
But
like,
well,
stop.
but we're talking about so many, so many people say, "Hey, if you are in a group, right, and you say, oh, someone brings something to the table that says, oh, I'm experiencing this. I'm experiencing this loss. I'm experiencing trauma. I'm experiencing the loss of a job. I'm experiencing transformation." What's interesting about this study is, in 9/11 that happened and all these seniors that are graduating, they were born at the time that this was happening. So they weren't really affected, but they're still the kids, they're still this class that has said, okay, they're branded, right, with all
Mm-hmm.
these crazy things that are happening in their lifetime. And so, but we say it's not just New York and its families that are associated with it, it's the entire world that has been going through
Yes.
this. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where the empathy comes on. Like, yes, I've had families that have lost people from COVID
Mm-hmm.
19. I have family that are
Yes.
in healthcare that are struggling every day to protect themselves. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we all do. Like it's that 6 degrees of separation has turned into 2 degrees, right? Because
Yes.
we're
Yes.
so socially connected now. But I guess my point was having that grace, like you said, for every single one of us to know that we're all going through this process and that we can lean on each other, right? And just make somebody smile or
Yes.
send them a card, a phone call, a voice message instead of a
Mm-hmm.
text.
Yes.
So critical. FaceTime, right? And checking in on your elders that
Mm-hmm.
are in nursing homes and finding out ways to just get pizzas for the ER, like little
Mm-hmm.
things, right?
I
It's
know. I
it's
know. And
simple.
that's the thing. It's once we kind of get the ball rolling on those types of things, it's, making handmade cards. And I have a friend that painted the window, of the nursing home so that those patients or those residents, they have something that they can look out through the window because they literally talk about feeling trapped. There are certain people, the people that have COVID-19 that are quarantined at home and they have to isolate. You really, gratitude and perspective comes back in. And then how can we be leaders? And you brought up 9/11, and then there's been certain things that have changed over the years. Like I think about, sounds silly, but I think about like the seatbelt law, right? Nobody wanted to conform. It's kind of like this shelter in place. I mean, there's people that are like, nobody's telling me, kind
Mhm.
of rebellious kind of about it. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm just hoping and praying and looking forward to what is it going to be like in July this year.
Mhm. I
And
know.
so what do you think? Like I would say magic wand. If you had a magic wand, what would it be? What would it look like? Standing in kind of a future fulfilled of July of 2020. What does that look like?
I wanna be on my sailboat.
Yes. And I want to be there with you.
Come on up, come on up.
I know my dad
And
has a sailboat. My parents have
oh,
these toys, and they're just like, oh, can't wait to go sailing.
I know. I want it to be I think the awareness piece, right? When we talk about that so much, but I hope what this has done is help people appreciate where they are, the things that they have in their life. And I think we've all been saying this for the last few weeks, but how important that is to really understand your family, your value in your family, the strengths that you have that you probably had forgotten or you had never experienced. One of the things for me, it's been cooking. In 29 years of marriage, uh,
I know,
I
like cook. You're like, what?
I go, "Well, let's just go out," right? It's easier, you're busy, but we literally since March the 12th, that was our last meal out, and not that we don't wanna support the local restaurants or anything like that, we just have chosen to go to the grocery store, and so we've been out 5 times in the last 5 weeks, and we've been really great about being creative and trying to just take that time, and you realize how much time you have back. And so I
Yes.
love it because it's really made you say, what are you going to be accountable to? How are you going to change yourself? What are you going to learn? And so we've taken that on as a challenge. And like you said, giving yourself grace to say it doesn't have to be perfect, but that you are showing up for you so that you can still stay healthy and show up for
Mhm.
those that really need you right now.
I love that. I love it. Cooking together, cooking and sharing recipes together. Create an old recipe, where it's shared. Maybe it's shared online now, and just finding ways to do that and be deliberate.
Be deliberate.
And I love the idea too about being accountable or having an accountability partner, because it's easy to get home and feel stuck. And
Mhm.
that's where we can reach out, share, and we can't touch or hug, which that is so strange all in of it. Like, I can't tell you the last time I've had a hug, and that's like,
Yeah,
oh, I
I
just
know.
want my dog. My dog, my dog is like, what is going on? Like, I'm being treated like the king of the world. So
I saw a post the other day and it said something, it had all these like 10 or 12 things about COVID-19, and some of them were really funny. And one of them was about our animals, right? And so they're looking at us saying, "Now you know why I chew the furniture."
chew the furniture. I loved that one. I was like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Now
because
you're wondering why I'm chewing the furniture with you.
oh my gosh.
Uh,
So what are your plans,
but
Teresa? So now that you're back in healthcare, you're doing home healthcare and hospice and doing all these
yes.
wonderful things for these patients. Tell me about what's happening, for your 2020.
Oh, and yeah, again, thank you for asking. And what has been such a blessing is to feel essential. I mean, to really, there is a problem out there, and I get to provide some solutions in some unique ways, and getting to reconnect and oh gosh, invest or look at some old opportunities that are now new opportunities, and how everything can be an opportunity whenever we look through that kind of perspective.
Mhm.
And I love how you said, this is kind of a grieving process for a lot of people, and there's going to be some hurt and some sadness, yet we're going to be able to pull together. We're going to be better together. And that's what I'm most excited, is to continue to connect with you and people like you, and then also be a representation that we get to be leaders in one of the most challenging times in the history of the entire world.
Mhm. Mhm. It's gonna be really interesting, it'll be a decade that kicks off that we all think about, like, how did 2020 start? And not to
Mhm.
forget this. And so we've been encouraging people, get out your journal and you think
Yes,
I actually stared at the calendar one day last week, and I thought, "Is it March or is
I
it
know.
April?" And I hadn't flipped the calendar yet, and so then I had to literally think, "Okay, Friday the 13th, it was March 13th when this started.
Mhm.
What day is it actually?" And I think it was the
Mhm.
5th or 6th of April, but I had just lost perspective. And
Mhm.
so because you're not going out of the house, you're not checking your mail. I go out and
Mhm.
check the mail every 3 or 4 days, I think.
Yeah, I know.
But,
Uh-huh.
because you're just so out of that routine, and I think we need to write about this, though, because as the days go by, you forget what influenced you, what did you think about, what was happening, what was
Mhm.
the news like, and if my grandmother was alive, she would be taking pictures of every single time that the president got on and made some kind of a announcement, because then she would print those out and put them in a book. That's just how she was, which
Wow.
is hysterical. And she wrote
Wow.
everything down. And I think, "Oh my gosh, I've missed the opportunity besides just doing interviews like this of what's happening and what's changing people's lives in their own
Mhm.
communities." Uh,
Yes.
because I think it's so important, because what we see in the Midwest isn't what you've seen in Texas, right? People are responding differently.
Exactly,
Mhm,
exactly, and that's the thing. Again, being able to connect with people and record and have evidence of what it was like. Just like you said, someone in Italy has, talk about again, having certain restrictions that are so unique, the way the employment for a lot of people, just all these different things, how we can definitely, and this is just a funny side note, is, they've been saying that wonder how many children are going to be conceived and born because of this at home
Or
order.
divorces.
And then, or divorces,
Yeah.
the divorce rate, and how many children. And I did see something the other day that said a mother had twins and named them COVID and Corona. And I was like, oh, wow, those kids are going to, yeah, she's going to be remembering this experience, forever, just
Mhm,
different things.
mhm.
I don't know. I just love you. I admire you. I respect you. You're
So much fun.
such a joy. You're joy in my teacup.
You are too to me. I am so glad we got to connect. This has been really wonderful. I want people to just follow you and continue to watch you on your journey because you are showing up, adding value, giving so much back to your community. And, I'm so happy that you got reconnected into something you're so passionate about in healthcare. And because in January, when we were really doing our podcast and the second week of January, you were going through a lot of transformation. And
Yes.
so having your feet kind of in the ground, but then going through COVID-19, a
Hmm.
lot of us were starting new things in 2020. And because that was the idea, right? Here's the vision, get on your
Yes.
vision board, start your new
Yes.
decade. And so all of us were doing that.
Yes.
But we have to continue to show up and we have to continue to add value. And so being everyday leaders, right? This is what it's all about. This is what it's
Mhm.
all about, encouraging, inspiring, and continue to show up in our life.
Yes. 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 I totally agree.
Oh, thanks for coming on tonight. This has been really wonderful.
No, thank you. And hugs,
Hugs
like
for
virtual hugs. I can't wait to the sailboat where we get a real live hug.
I know.
And, again, I just really encourage people to share your ideas, share your hope, really connect with you, connect with me, connect with people to where you can get the momentum going to where you're moving forward.
Moving forward, absolutely. You guys
Yeah.
can connect to Teresa Snider. You can go to everydayleaders.com. You can listen to all the podcasts. I would encourage you. I'm going to tag this on here too, so you can listen to her podcast from January's segment.
Woo!
But follow her because she is a woman on the move, and it's such a joy. You are just a wonderful friend, and I'm so glad that you got to spend some time with us tonight.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mwah.
Mwah.
Bye
Have a great.
bye.
Be safe.
You too.
All right.